Imagine living each day as if you were Marcus Aurelius, an ancient Roman emperor whose wisdom has echoed through the centuries. For the past 30 days, I immersed myself in his Stoic teachings, seeking to understand if these timeless principles could truly transform my life. What I discovered reshaped my mindset, my habits, and my journey of personal growth. There was a morning, not long after I started this experiment, when I found myself staring at the day ahead, full of challenges, distractions, and pressures. I remembered one of Marcus's lessons. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. At that moment, the smallest frustration, one that would have derailed my mood in the past, became my teacher. Instead of resisting it, I embraced it. The traffic that made me late? A reminder to practice patience. The project deadline that seemed overwhelming? An opportunity to focus and break it down. As days passed, I realized that life wasn't about avoiding obstacles but learning how to meet them with strength, acceptance, and clarity. Marcus Aurelius taught me to be the master of my response, not the circumstances. And so I began choosing to live intentionally, to meet each day with purpose, and to embrace challenges not as problems but as growth opportunities. In the end, these Stoic principles didn't just change my mindset, they transformed the way I approached every part of my life. My habits became aligned with my values, and my personal growth started flowing from within, not from external circumstances. Now I see each day as a chance to practice resilience, gratitude, and focus, just as Marcus did over 2,000 years ago. Before we dive into my 30-day challenge, let's take a moment to explore what Stoicism is and why I chose to follow it. Stoicism is a philosophy that teaches us to focus on what we can control, accept what we can't, and live a virtuous life guided by 4 core principles: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. To understand why these principles matter, let me share a story of one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, Marcus Aurelius. He wasn't just a thinker, he was also an emperor, leading the Roman Empire during times of war, political strife, and personal tragedy. Despite all these external pressures, Marcus managed to maintain his peace of mind. How? Through the wisdom he found in his own writings, particularly in meditations, where he crafted his thoughts as a guide to self-improvement and resilience. What struck me about Marcus is how he led with inner strength. He faced enormous challenges, but he knew that true power didn't come from controlling external circumstances. It came from controlling his mind and his reactions. That's why I decided to immerse myself in Stoicism, not just as a philosophy, but as a way of life. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, regardless of what's happening around you. I set out to live according to the Stoic principles for 30 days, focusing on daily habits like journaling, mindfulness, and embracing discomfort. It wasn't going to be easy, but I knew that to make lasting changes in my life, I had to dive deep and commit fully. So I began with a clear intention, to practice Stoicism every day, even when it was uncomfortable or challenging. Preparation for the challenge. Before starting, I knew this challenge wouldn't be a smooth ride. Stoicism requires us to confront our discomforts, and I could already feel the tension rising. I had always been someone who wanted to control everything: my schedule, my relationships, my environment. But Stoicism teaches us that we can't control everything. What we can control is our response to what happens. And I wasn't sure I was ready to let go of that constant need to grip every situation tightly. But I committed. First impressions. The first few days were rough. It was harder than I anticipated. Each morning, I would sit down to journal, reflecting on the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, reminding myself to focus on what was within my control. Yet, throughout the day, the old habits kicked in. When things went wrong, whether it was a delay in my plans, a disagreement with a friend, or a simple inconvenience, I felt that familiar frustration building. I realized how often I was trying to control everything, even things that were completely outside of my power. It was uncomfortable, challenging, and honestly, a little frustrating. But I kept reminding myself, the obstacle is the way. I began to see that these small frustrations were opportunities to practice the very thing I was struggling with: acceptance. I couldn't control these situations, but I could control how I responded to them. It was like a muscle I had to train, one small moment at a time. In the first week, I struggled with the basic Stoic concepts, especially the idea of controlling my thoughts and emotions. It felt like a constant battle. I was used to reacting impulsively to situations, letting my emotions dictate how I felt and acted. But Stoicism asks us to do the opposite, to observe our thoughts without getting swept up in them, to choose how we respond, not just react. Challenges in daily life. One of the hardest moments came during a stressful situation at work. A project I had poured hours into suddenly faced complications I had no power to fix. Deadlines were tight, the pressure was mounting, and I found myself growing increasingly frustrated. In that moment, my instinct was to try and control every element of the situation, to stress over the outcome, to push harder, to somehow force everything to go my way. But Stoicism taught me that the only thing I could control in that moment was my response. Not the situation, not the people involved, but my reaction. Instead of letting the stress spiral out of control, I paused. I remembered the Stoic wisdom. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. I chose to breathe, to stay calm, and to focus on what I could influence. My mindset shifted from frustration to acceptance, and I felt a sense of peace I hadn't expected in such a tense moment. I realized then how much power I had, not over the external world, but over my own state of mind. Lesson learned. Another surprising part of this journey was how powerful journaling became. At first, it felt like a task, a way to document the day. But as I wrote down my thoughts and emotions, I began to realize how much clearer my mind became. Writing allowed me to externalize my inner turmoil, to see my thoughts laid out in front of me, and to reflect on them more objectively. It gave me the distance I needed to recognize that my thoughts and feelings weren't facts, and I didn't have to be controlled by them. Journaling helped me take a step back, gain clarity, and apply Stoic principles more effectively in my daily life. What I learned in that first week was simple yet profound. I couldn't control the world around me, but I could control how I responded to it. And in that space, I found freedom. By the second week, I began to feel the real benefits of Stoicism. I noticed a shift in my thinking. I wasn't letting small setbacks ruin my day anymore. The initial struggle to control my reactions had started to give way to a deeper sense of emotional control and resilience. It was like a new lens through which I was viewing the world. Emotional control and resilience. The first few days of practicing Stoicism, I was overwhelmed by how many small irritations and frustrations would arise throughout my day. But by week 2, I found myself in situations where I didn't automatically react with frustration. Instead, when something went wrong, I paused and asked myself, what can I control here? This simple question started to change how I approached every situation. It wasn't about ignoring the problem or pretending things didn't matter. It was about recognizing that my response was what I had power over. Once I made that distinction, my sense of calm began to grow. The challenges around me were still there, but my emotional reaction to them had shifted. Example: one morning, I spilled coffee all over my clothes just before a big meeting. Normally, this would have been the start of a stressful, frustrating day. I would have let the incident set the tone, feeling upset and distracted. But this time, I practiced what Marcus Aurelius had written. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Instead of letting the mishap ruin my mood, I took a deep breath, reminded myself that this was a small temporary setback, and got ready for the meeting. By the time I arrived, I felt calm and focused, fully present for the conversation. The spill didn't define my day, my response to it did. In that moment, I realized how powerful it was to control my reaction, to focus on what I could do instead of what had happened. In the middle of my challenge, Stoicism pushed me to embrace discomfort and accept it as part of life. At first, this concept seemed counterintuitive. After all, who willingly seeks out discomfort? But Stoicism isn't about avoiding discomfort. It's about understanding that it's temporary and valuable for growth. I realized that the things I usually tried to avoid, the tough workouts, the difficult conversations, the situations that made me uncomfortable, were the very things I needed to face in order to grow stronger. The power of discomfort. There were moments when I felt my old habits kicking in. The urge to escape or avoid discomfort was still there, especially when it came to things I didn't want to confront. But Stoicism taught me that discomfort was not my enemy, it was a teacher. I began to seek out situations that made me uncomfortable, not to punish myself, but to grow. Whether it was pushing through a difficult workout or having a tough conversation with someone I had been avoiding, I started to recognize the value in these moments. One of the most powerful lessons came when I had to confront a difficult conversation at work. I'd been avoiding it for days, hoping it would somehow resolve itself, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't. Stoicism reminded me, what stands in the way becomes the way. I had to face the discomfort head-on. So I sat down, had the conversation, and despite the initial unease, I walked away feeling a sense of relief. It wasn't as bad as I'd feared, and by addressing it, I felt more at peace. Lesson learned. The more I embraced discomfort, the less it controlled me. Every time I faced something challenging, I became a little bit stronger. I learned that discomfort wasn't something to fear, but something to lean into. It was in those moments that I discovered my true resilience. By accepting discomfort as part of life, I began to feel more capable of handling the challenges that came my way. Stoicism had shown me that the things that make us uncomfortable are often the things that make us grow. And the more I practiced, the more I felt prepared to take on whatever life had in store. In the final stretch of my challenge, I really began to understand the Stoic principle of acceptance. Accepting what is beyond my control and focusing only on what I can change. It wasn't just an intellectual understanding anymore. It was a shift in how I approached life. I started to let go of the need to control everything, especially the things that were outside my influence. This shift was deeply freeing. Letting go of perfectionism. One of the biggest realizations I had was how much perfectionism had been holding me back. I had always been driven by the desire to get everything right, to make every decision, every project, every interaction flawless. But the more I tried to control every detail, the more stressed and exhausted I became. Stoicism taught me that I didn't need everything to be perfect. Instead, I just needed to do my best and accept whatever came. As I began to let go of perfectionism, I found that I was actually getting more done, and I was less anxious about the results. I didn't have to demand perfection from myself or others. I just had to focus on the present moment, give my best effort, and trust that whatever happened was what was meant to happen. Personal reflection. This was a breakthrough moment for me. I started feeling more at peace, less anxious, and more focused on the present. I wasn't constantly trying to control every outcome or obsess over what I couldn't change. Instead, I learned to accept things as they came and trust the process. By embracing the Stoic idea of focusing only on what I can control, I started to feel a deeper sense of calm and confidence. I realized that by letting go of perfectionism, I wasn't giving up. I was actually freeing myself to grow, to learn, and to live with greater clarity. By the end of the 30 days, my mindset had completely shifted. I felt more grounded, resilient, and at peace. What had started as an experiment had transformed into a way of living. The constant battle within myself had settled into a quiet understanding. Stoicism had shown me how to approach life differently, and I felt like I had uncovered a new layer of strength and clarity within me. Biggest changes. The most significant change was how I reacted to stress. Before, any setback or unexpected challenge would throw me off balance. My mind would race, My emotions would flare, and I'd feel completely overwhelmed. But by the end of the challenge, when something went wrong, whether it was a mistake at work, a change in plans, or a personal frustration, I didn't immediately react. Instead, I paused, took a breath, and asked myself, what can I control here? This simple question, which I had repeated to myself countless times over the past month, had begun to reshape my response. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, I felt empowered to face challenges with a clear, calm mind. I wasn't fighting the stress or trying to avoid it. I was accepting it as a part of life and focusing on what I could do next. I felt like I had found a steadiness within myself that I had never experienced before. Key takeaway: Stoicism isn't just a philosophy, it's a way of living. It's not about avoiding difficulty or striving for perfection. It's about focusing on what you can control and letting go of everything else. By focusing on my responses, my choices, and my actions, I realized I had the power to shape my experience, no matter what life threw my way. This was the true gift of Stoicism. Not only did it help me navigate challenges, but it gave me a deeper sense of peace, knowing I was living in alignment with my values. The journey was far from easy, but as I look back, I see how much growth has come from simply accepting what I can't change and fully committing to what I can. If you're inspired by this challenge and want to try Stoicism for yourself, here's how you can start. Actionable steps. The first step I recommend is to start by journaling daily. It was a practice that helped me tremendously. Each day, take a moment to reflect on your thoughts, your reactions, and how you can control them. Write down moments where you felt frustrated or stressed. Then ask yourself, what was within my control here? Journaling is a powerful way to externalize your thoughts and gain clarity on what's happening inside your mind. By reflecting on your actions and emotions, you begin to detach from them and see them more objectively, which is the first step to mastering your mind. Next, embrace discomfort. This was one of the toughest lessons for me, but it became one of the most transformative. Take small steps outside of your comfort zone every day. Whether it's something as simple as initiating a difficult conversation, tackling a challenging project, or stepping into a situation that makes you uneasy, discomfort is the gateway to growth. Stoicism teaches us that discomfort is not a sign of failure, it's a tool for building resilience. The more you practice facing discomfort, the less it will control you. Finally, remember that Stoicism isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's not about getting everything right all the time, it's about striving toward self-mastery, one step at a time. There will be days when you slip, when you fall short, and that's okay. Stoicism teaches us that it's not the mistakes that define us, but how we rise from them. The journey toward wisdom, courage, and self-control is lifelong, and every day is a chance to learn and grow. So if you're ready to begin your Stoic journey, start small, take it one day at a time, and remember, each step forward is a victory in itself. So there you have it, my 30-day journey with Stoicism. Over the course of this challenge, I learned that the true power of Stoicism lies not in mastering every moment, but in mastering how we respond to life's challenges. It's a journey of progress, not perfection, and each step forward brings more peace, more control, and more resilience into our lives. I hope this video inspired you to give Stoicism a try and start living with a greater sense of purpose and clarity. Whether it's through journaling, embracing discomfort, or learning to accept what you cannot change, Stoicism has the potential to transform the way you approach life. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more on personal growth and Stoic philosophy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and share it with someone who might benefit from Stoic wisdom. If you're ready to dive deeper into Stoicism and personal growth, I've got plenty more content right here on the channel. Whether you're looking for practical Stoic habits, personal development tips, or inspiring reflections, I've got something for you. Click on the videos on the screen to continue your journey. Just tap and keep growing. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a new video. Remember, the journey toward a better you starts with just one step. See you in the next one.